Learning Music with Pat. On the last segment, I talked to you about taking care of instruments, and I talked to you about this little one that I had kind of resurrected, and I'm going to start off by playing a song on it, but I want to review first exactly what happened with this little song flute. And what happened was, and I'll make this quick because I've got a lot of other things to show you, but what happened was I was riding in a car with my nieces and nephews, and I was sitting in the back seat, and they flipped this up from the floor of the front seat and said, "Here, Auntie Pat, you can have this one. We don't want it anymore. And besides that, it doesn't play." And I said, "How long has it been in the car?" It was in the heat of the summer. And they said, "Oh, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, sometime like that. You know, it's been quite a while," which means that this instrument was, when it was freezing out, was in the car. This instrument, when it was so hot, it was boiling out, you know what it's like in a hot car during the summer, it was in the car. And I thought to myself, there's no reason why this instrument would want to play. So I thanked him for it. I took it home. I bathed it with alcohol. I didn't try to get in the inside of the instrument. Some instruments you can pull apart. These little ones you cannot pull apart. And so therefore I just kept it, just bathed it with alcohol, and I started blowing on it, and it took 3 or 4 days of a gentle blowing here and there, and it made a squeaky sound, one little tiny squeaky sound. And to me that was a breakthrough, because I know if it could make one little squeaky sound, it probably was going to be able to make other little squeaky sounds until later it would play. And so I got it over a period of time so it would play a scale. I brought it into an orchestra I was playing with, and they stopped to listen to it because the tone was so unusual, but it sounds like most little song flutes sound, and it's more or less, for the most part, in pitch with itself. It's a little bit flatter than a true key of C would be, but it's not like the key of B. It's not down that far. So it's just a tiny bit flat, but it has an unusual sound. So I'm going to play a scale on it, and then I'm going to play a song using this as a solo instrument. Now it plays like 8 or 9 notes. It has an octave range. It doesn't play any higher. I can't fiddle with it and make it jump an octave like you can with a recorder, even though it does have a tone hole in the back like the recorder has, but you could only do one octave with it, plus sometimes one note. If I am to play a C, let me just do a comparison. If I am to play a C on my recorder, and bear in mind this is perfect pitch, if you can remember that, and I'm going to play a little bit flat, just a little bit flat, and the fingering is different. This is the way you would finger a C on a recorder, and it's not even a C. So in order to get a C, I have to play what would be the equivalent of a C sharp in order to get a C. That means I have to finger things a little differently. I have to figure out what matches in pitch and what doesn't match in pitch. But the good thing about this is that it's got a good, strong, clear tone. It's in pitch with itself. I can use it for solos if I want to, even though generally speaking I don't. Children do play them. You can learn a lot of music on them. So I'm going to play a song now. It's called "It Is Well With My Soul." It's done by the McDonald Family Singers, and it's done in brass. And I chose it basically because this instrument will pitch with that song. But it is a beautiful song. It's all done in brass. This will stand out because it's the one instrument of that whole group of instruments that is not brass. So we'll start with that. There's no introduction, so I'm going to just have to come in. sounds pretty good, and it sounds pretty much in pitch. But if you watched my fingers, I don't know if you did or not, there's lots of times where I had the half hole. So this finger had the half hole. What would be a G in any other instrument, it half holed it. Then I get to a B flat. I put a forked fingering in for the B flat. So at any rate, there are various ways that you can make an instrument, or help an instrument play what it normally wouldn't be able to play. So I could do a little scale work with this. I can do some half-holing with this. The one thing I cannot do is octaves with it. It cannot play them. And I don't expect it to. It's not capable of doing it. But it has a really nice tone, and you have to consider, this went from nothing to what you heard today. And so that is something else. It went from not being able to play at all, and I just faked some fingerings and blew it and got it going, and so it has really quite a nice little tone to it. I've not used it for solo work except once, but just to show that it could do it. And so people, there was a church in Massachusetts I used to go to, and I used to use instruments as examples of how human beings heal, and I talked about it quite a bit, and I would walk on with a lot of damaged instruments, and they wanted to hear the stories behind them. So I'm going to tell you another story about another instrument, and this is this trombone. And to do this, I'm going to move this music stand a little bit, and I'm going to hold this trombone. This trombone is very, very damaged, but I want you to see it. There are things I want to show you about it. I am not a brass player, and the kind of the rule of thumb is, can you see this all right? Will you be able to see it? Okay, the rule of thumb is if you are playing woodwind instruments, you should not play brass because it changes your embouchure so much. There's a whole different set of muscles here. The muscles around your lips are what you have when you're using playing any kind of an instrument. And when you're using woodwinds, you have the mouthpiece usually, except for the flute, in your mouth. When you are using brass, you have the mouthpiece, which I have up here, up to your mouth, but not in it. And the shofars play a little bit like that too. It makes a sound. I mean, it's not going to make a real tone because I don't have it attached to the instrument. But let me tell you about the trombone. There's a story behind this one too. So I'll hold it, not in the way that you normally hold a trombone, but if I don't hold it this way, it will fall apart. A man who's a friend of mine in a church in Massachusetts went into a music store, and he doesn't know anything about music, and they were selling this trombone, and they were real eager to get rid of it. Well, I know why. It's so damaged, nobody would want to buy it. But he thought I would love it because it's an instrument, so they gave it to him, or they let him buy it for $5. Pure profit on their part, because nobody else would probably buy it. And he came into a church service, and he said, "Pat, you're going to love this one. I have a special gift for you." It was in a case. And I knew what it was, of course, and I opened it up, and I says, "Well, it's a beautiful trombone." He says, "It doesn't play, but don't worry about it. It'll make a wonderful art piece for your wall." And I says, "I'm not hanging to myself." I didn't tell him this. I'm not putting a full-size trombone on my wall. It's a little too heavy. It is a very, very beautiful instrument. It plays beautifully, but it has been damaged so much that normally you wouldn't play it, but it has the capabilities of playing. So what I did was, when I got it, I thanked him, and I let the slide drop. I'm not going to let it drop today. I've got it jury-rigged so that it won't. But I took the slide, which is this part here that you have to move up and down, and I let it drop. I held the instrument up and I let it drop. And therefore, I could tell that the slide movement was normal on it, and I could tell that it wasn't dented or anything, so that it would be able to play the various notes, because to get various notes on a trombone, you have to be able to move the slide into the right position, like position 4 and position 5 and so forth, and then bring it up and down down so you'll be able to get notes on it. It would be able to do that. The thing, though, it wouldn't hold together. This is very loose, and even now it's trying to fall apart on me, so I want to get that back. I have to hold it like that because it will fall apart. Everything, every joint, every screw area where the instrument would attach so it wouldn't fall apart has been stripped, and that's nothing but abuse. I mean, there's no excuse for it. It's nothing but abuse. There is a lock on the slide, or there's supposed to be. It is stripped so it doesn't work. But this should be able, I should be able to take the slide and put it up and lock it in place so that it won't just drop. Now that has been stripped and that doesn't work, and so what I did was I put a couple of hook-like things on it so it prevents the slide from dropping. It'll only go so far. This is a perfectly normal slide. It's working perfectly, but I can't hold it in position when I don't want to use it. If you use it, you should unlock the slide and use it, then put it back and lock it with the slide lock. But that slide lock doesn't work. The other thing I noticed about it, some of the many things I noticed about it, is the fact that it had the metal had split in various places. I don't know. I'm going to try to hold this so you can see this all right. This whole area is split. I've taped it shut so you can't actually see it, but you might be able to see where I've bandaged it. I used ordinary strapping tape, and I wrapped all around the splits. Now, I know that it's not going to change. Yeah, good. You got a good shot right there. It's not going to change it or prevent it from splitting further. I didn't think it would split further. That wasn't the reason I put the tape on. I put it in there to stop, if I could, any air leaks. In an instrument that's not working properly, air leaks are a serious thing, because every note below the air leak will be affected by a split or some kind of an air leak that's not supposed to be there. So I have bandaged this. I use strapping for up here, or there's another place too, I think, close to the end of the slide. I don't see it right now, but there are various places that I bandage it up with strapping tape to stop air leaks. You'll notice that there's a lot of dents. If I put this instrument like this, if I hold it like this, I don't know if you'll be able to see, all around the edges, there are dents, really big dents. You know, it's been banged. There, that's a good shot right there. It's been banged. And, you know, there's no excuse for treating an instrument like that. And so what I did was I let the slide drop. It was normal. I put the mouthpiece in, and I could get a beautiful tone out of it. And I don't even play trombone, but I was able to get a really good tone on it. And then I took it to my sister, because not only is she an organist and a pianist, but she also plays brass instruments. And she took a look at this trombone, and she started playing it. And she said, "What a nice trombone. It plays so beautifully." But of course, she had to hold it differently than you would normally hold it, so it wouldn't fall apart on her. So I've used it to teach people what not to do with instruments. I've done that. And then what I did was I started doing sermons on it. This is the way you treat an instrument. This is the way you treat people. If you've been banged and bruised and injured and hurt, you can repair. This instrument could probably repair. If someone wanted to spend the money on it to do it, it would cost a lot of money. But I used it to teach psychological principles. And then I can remember after one sermon, I was holding it, and I says, "If you're interested, you can come down and look at the trombone. I won't let you hold it, because if you don't hold it the way I hold it, it will fall apart on you, because all of the screws are all stripped." And I couldn't believe it, but I had a whole line of people who wanted to come down. And they were standing in line, and they all looked at it. And then something I thought remarkable for them happened. They would say, "Oh," I'm going to balance it right here, this ding, this represents what happened to me. I remember it well. In such and such a year, I got a divorce, or I was abused, or something terrible happened, or I lost my house. That ding represents what I went through. And they all came down, and they're looking at it, and they're poking it, and they're saying, well, this down here, represents what happened to me. And they went through kind of like their life stories about all of the things that happened to them from this damaged trombone. To them, the trombone had kind of become one of them. And they were able to understand and look at their history and the things they went through in perspective as I held the trombone for them to look at it. It was like a gift. It was like a healing for them. And so I was glad I did that. So every so often I will bring a trombone in, or an instrument like the trombone that's been damaged, and I will work with it, and then I will say, okay, this may represent something that you've been through, but this instrument plays beautifully. It really does. It's easy to get good notes out of it. It has a good quality of tone. It's like it's ready to play if only you could put it together where it had been damaged and hold it in place so that it wouldn't fall apart. My sister was very impressed with this instrument and said this is a very high quality trombone. But you can see it looks like somebody even scraped it. It's been scraped enough that I don't know what the brand name is. I can't tell. And you've got a good shot of it there. Like somebody took some kind of a metal object and just scraped it. So I don't understand why anyone would abuse anything like this. It was a beautiful instrument, and I don't understand why people would abuse other people either. So it does have its object lessons. So that's my little trombone, and I do treasure it because it can teach so many things. I have other things to show you, and we don't have a whole lot of time left, so maybe what I should do is close it and continue with this next time, where I have other instruments to show you that also have had problems and what I've done to restore them and what you can do to treat an instrument well so you don't get any kind of a bad result like this. So let's close it here, and we'll begin next time as a continuation of this. So please join me then.